Resident Evil 5.
So Resident Evil 5 released all the way back in what, 2008, 2009? And I got it first day it came out. And I played the shit out of it, man. That was my first foray into Resident Evil myself. It was the first one that I actually played. I watched my stepdad play Resident Evil 1, 2, and 4 when I was a little kid, and I was terrified of it. Resident Evil 4, I was a little bit older, so it kind of intrigued me, and I ended up playing it in high school, and it's gone on to be my favorite game of all time, so Resident Evil 5 is up there too. Resident Evil 5 is on the list to be one of the next Resident Evil remakes from Capcom. This video is basically just going to be me going over what I would really love to see out of a possible Resident Evil 5 remake, if that's the next one. Who knows? There's like 4 of them that are up for a remake right now. I think the path to success with this game is going to lie within the story and the mechanics. They have to, even though it's bad, they have to stick with the original story for the most part. They can change a few things. Like, what was that one guy that turns into the giant fish? That could be changed up a little bit. I didn't really care for that guy and his character. It kind of sucked. They can keep him, but they need to change him a little bit. You got to keep Sheva. And you got to keep her character the way she was. And you got to change her AI, because they showed us that with Luis, they can make good AI.
You grab it.
Roger.
Help me! I'm not gonna make it! Help me!
And cut the truck level, please. I hate it so much. I still haven't gotten an S. I've got S rank on everything except for the truck level. And I refuse to try it anymore. I think I tried it maybe 50 times in a row. No thank you. Turn the truck level into a cutscene. Maybe put a part in the middle of it where you can run around.
Do what you gotta do to stop them. But don't get too trigger happy or the guns will overheat. If that happens, we'll be an easy target until they cool down.
And maybe the part where you fight the Garrador, or I don't know if they're called the same thing in Resident Evil 5. Make him different from all of the other Garrador, and get rid of the truck. Just fight him normally. I hate that level so much. So the chapters and the areas, I think, actually are completely fine. You know, obviously modernize them a little bit, make them a little bit more diverse with the foliage and the trash and like the art style and all of that. Make some of the areas bigger, I think. Make some bigger, make some smaller where you feel like you're more cramped and have no way out. More areas too. Take some of them out, but I think the pacing of the areas and like the actual theming of the areas is fine. Maybe add in one more that's similar to the castle in Resident Evil 4, but with an African theme. More backtracking. I don't mind. I hate backtracking in most games, especially open world games, but Resident Evil 4's backtracking I think was perfect. Especially when you go back to the areas and something has changed, or you go back there and nothing has changed, and while you're there things change. I think that's a good way to go.
Okay, it's all right.
No problem.
Hi there.
And I think Resident Evil 5 needs a merchant. I think that they were going to have the merchant in Resident Evil 5. I'm pretty sure that guy at the beginning was planned to be the merchant. That very first guy you meet. Because he looks like that he's a shop owner, and he looks like that he would be a shop owner. I'm pretty sure that's a thing.
You too. This way.
But I didn't really like the way the store worked in Resident Evil 5, where at the end of every level you like manage your inventory. I mean, I think the way Resident Evil 4 did it was great, where you can go to the typewriters and change shit. Chris Redfield. He needs to be jacked. He needs to keep that same personality that's been going. He needs those muscles. He needs to be punching rocks, all kinds of stuff. They don't need to change that. I love that ridiculous power that he has. I think we need to see more of Jill. I think the cloaked, mysterious person is a cool concept that they didn't really utilize much in Resident Evil 5, except for maybe in cutscenes. I think a couple of fights with that stranger would be pretty cool. Or maybe have a couple of strangers that are fake. Or maybe a couple of them where they all look the same except their eyes are different colors. And you could also make them people from past Resident Evil games. Like, have more than one version of, like, oh yeah, that's Jill. And like, oh crap, here's the guy from Resident Evil 0. What? I forget his name. And then just, like, Jill's the only one that survives. Because you kill the first guy, and then you realize it's whoever his name is from Resident Evil 0. The Wesker fight at the end. I hated fighting him on the carrier. I think that part was just dumb. And it should be changed. I think actually that you should fight him in a closed corridor, having to run and also do damage to him at the same time. I think that would be a really good one. And then keep the volcano. Keep that whole volcano section.
I should have killed you years ago. Chris.
Your mistake. It's over, Wesker.
Over. I'm just getting started.
make it the environment change more, I think. But that final boss fight, just in that circle, where I think that is a really good boss fight. I like doing that boss fight, especially the second time around when you've got more ammo and better guns.
I can't lose, not to you!
Let's talk about the mechanics for a minute. I'm going to start with the parry from Resident Evil 4.
Here we go.
I think it's a perfect mechanic. I think that from now on, at least in most of the mainline, or even the sideline Resident Evil games, I think that parry should be in there in some form. Don't make it worse. Maybe make it possibly where a knife has to be equipped, and that's the only way you could parry. It is kind of ridiculous to have your gun out like a machine gun or a sniper rifle and you're aiming and then you just drop it and pull out a knife, and that's kind of ridiculous. It's fun, but it doesn't really make sense, and it kind of takes away a little bit of the urgency and scariness. It's perfect in Resident Evil 4, but they'll mess it up later on. No more QuickTime events. The original Resident Evil 4, I think, did it perfectly, and I don't think that it could be built upon, and I don't think that they should try it again. The way they did it in Resident Evil 4 Remake is probably how they should keep it in the Resident Evil 5 Remake, where it's just, you tap F when you're grabbed, or you could just, if you got a knife, stab them. The puzzles, they're a little bit garbage in Resident Evil 5, probably because they were focusing on the co-op, and they thought that maybe you're going to be playing with somebody who's not as good as maybe you're playing with somebody who's not as good with puzzles, and I disagree with that. If they're going to make it co-op, leave the puzzles good. Don't leave the puzzles from the original Resident Evil 5 in here. You got to change those, or just take them out. Once again, you got to keep that Resident Evil 4 energy going. You got to keep that optional stealth. I think that would work very well with Resident Evil 5, because you just like, especially in the military areas or like on the cruise ship, I think that you got to keep that in. Just keep as many different ways to play as possible. If you're going to keep Chris jacked, which I think they should, I think that they need to utilize some of his power and give more opportunities for melee and punching things. Like punching doors down, I think that would be amazing, because they already would fall apart if you shot them. In Resident Evil 5, make them fall, like, kick them in half, just burst into rooms. Or you can, use the stealth mechanic. You don't have to burst into the room. I want to just be able to sprint up to people who aren't ready for it, who don't have their weapon drawn, and just punch them right in the face. I want to be able to do that. Just run up to people and punch them if they're not ready for it. If they got their guard up, still be able to run up and punch them, but they can counter. And maybe have a counter for the counter. So you just have like this whole melee action thing you're doing, and if somebody tries to hit you, you can counter that from like the guy from the side, you know? That'd be awesome. It would make sense for Chris. I mean, it would take away kind of the... Would it take away the scares? I don't know. I think it would beef up the urgency, especially if more and more enemies start piling up around you because you're taking care of these two enemies. And then you're just going to have to back away from that situation. Maybe you could utilize that to get them all grouped up and toss a grenade or something, or shoot them with the assault rifle. So let's move on to the collectibles. I didn't really care for the Clockwork Castellans or whatever, Castellans. I don't know how to pronounce it. It's supposed to be a Spanish game and there's two L's. It makes a Y to me. But the treasures are fine. I went through one playthrough and got the Clockwork collectibles in the original. Just, you don't need them. Just leave all the special stuff to actually completing challenges and completing the game so many times in so many different ways. Just keep that energy going. Get the secret areas with secret treasures, you know, that type of thing. Just keep that energy going. BSAA emblems, keep those. I like having those. Those are good.
If you do go down, Sheva will just revive you, and there will most likely be an herb for you to pick up right away. So
I think it needs to be less of an action game. Less ammo. Less action, more running around, looking at things and finding things and having encounters and doing puzzles. Need more of that. More tight corridors, more high stakes, but less action, definitely. More like encounters with one or two enemies that are just out of nowhere, different and unique. I think we need more of those. Not like more regenerators or anything. I think we need less of the big encounters where you're fighting 30 enemies and more where you're in a hallway and there's a guy running at you with a shovel or something and he's got, I don't know, like lava melted all over him or something and it hardened so he takes less damage. You know, there's just all kinds of crazy stuff like that. And I don't like the 9 slots that you get for the inventory when you're just running around. I don't like that at all. I like the cases. The attaché cases, or the attach cases. Attachy, whatever you want to call them. You gotta keep that. Resident Evil 4 did it. Resident Evil 8 did it. Keep that energy going. I love the cases. I love getting bigger cases and being able to hold bigger weapons with bigger stuff and more stuff. And keep the charms, have the different types of cases do different things, you know, have different buffs, and maybe have some of them do some debuffs if you get some extra buffs, you know, make it a little interesting.
3, 2, 1, begin! Beautiful!
That was awesome.
Should there be a mini game? Resident Evil 4 had the shooting range. Resident Evil 5, I don't think had a mini game. No, it didn't. It didn't have a mini game. But I don't think it should. Or, you know, have like a shooting range that you run through and instead of just stand there shooting targets. That would make a little bit more sense for Chris because, you know, he's like militarized and all of that. But do we really need a mini game? I don't think we do.
I can still hold my own.
This one right here is the biggest question I think everybody has for Resident Evil 5. Will it be co-op? I honestly think that it will be. I think it's going to be co-op. And I'm okay with that because I had a lot of fun playing the co-op originally. I think it would turn the gaming industry upside down if we had a co-op Resident Evil game again. That was just, you know, phenomenal. I really hope they don't mess it up. And I won't be mad if it's a single player. I won't be mad at all. Either they could do it or they could just not do it. I think I'm gonna be okay with it either way. Alright. Here's the one thing that I am most worried about. How are politics going to affect it? I know people were crying racism back in the day because it was white people shooting at black people. And I just want to know how they're going to tackle that. And I hope they just don't care about it and do it like they did in the original. Make the races make sense. There were some Chinese people in there because, you know, there are Chinese people in these African villages, and there are some white people, you know, just a little bit, but it's mostly black people. I hope they don't try and make a relationship out of Chris and Sheva. I hope it just sticks to business only. Keep all the sexual stuff, the romance and all that to Leon.
Leon, it's been 6 hours since our last transmission. I was starting to get worried.
Don't you mean lonely? Hey, Hunnigan, no glasses.
Forget the glasses. What's the status of the mission?
Just leave it to Leon. I think he is the character for that. We don't need romance with a bunch of different characters. But I don't think that we're going to have to worry about that part. I don't think they're going to have any openly gay characters or trans characters or anything like that. Maybe Evelyn might be trans, but who knows? Who knows? I doubt it. These are Japanese people we're talking about. Well, that's just gonna about wrap up this discussion about Resident Evil 5. Not really a discussion. It's more like, hey, do these things or you're gonna fail. Please don't mess up. Which they've been on a pretty good track as of late, so I think they're gonna do pretty good, especially adding in third person play into Resident Evil Village. Like, I couldn't even play that game because it was in first person. It just felt weird in first person. I didn't like it. But when they changed to third person, one of my favorite games. It's a nice game. Capcom, please make this game good.